The famous Christian writer C.S. Lewis said, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience of this world can fulfill, I must conclude I was made for another world." So dear friends, we're made for another world. Everyone is looking for God. This is not just a sociological phenomena. This tells us something deep about the human being. So we've now come to the fifth topic of the Bhagavad-gita, dear friends. This is the last topic, and then after the 18th chapter, we'll conclude. The last topic is perhaps the most important topic, because without this, everything else doesn't really make sense. Yes, it makes sense conceptually, but it doesn't give the hope. It doesn't give the attraction. There's still one piece missing in the picture that Krishna wants to paint for Arjuna. And that is, what is beyond all of this? Is there something beyond all of this? And Krishna in this final topic talks about himself. Krishna talks about the spiritual world. And Krishna talks about the metaphysical reality that transcends all of the temporary infrastructure that we see in this material world. Man has been described in different ways, sometimes as Homo sapien, the thinking entity. But at its root, man is Homo religiosus. Humans are looking for God. Humans are looking for sacred encounter. Even people who say that they're materialistic, even they are looking for something beyond just the profane of the world. And therefore, philosophers have told us the sacred is an element in the structure of human consciousness and not just a moment in the history of human consciousness. In other words, deep within us, we all desire the opportunity to encounter the sacred. And therefore, what you find is across the world, there are religions. Across the world, there are places of pilgrimage. Across the world, there are different temples, mosques, churches where people go to try to meet God. This is not just a sociological phenomena. This tells us something deep about the human being. The famous Christian writer C.S. Lewis said, "If I find in myself a desire which no experience of this world can fulfill, I must conclude I was made for another world." So dear friends, we're made for another world. Everyone is looking for God. Take a look. Are we made for another world? Krishna says, yes. Natad bhashayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha. There is another realm where there is no need for the sun or the moon or electricity. That realm is self-illuminated. And that realm is the place where we can find our deepest desires fulfilled. And so, over the course of history, different religions have appeared in order to give human beings an opportunity to connect with that reality. Here I'll show you how religion has spread all over the world. Here in this animation is explaining Hinduism is the oldest religion. Of course, the dates that scholars give, we understand it to have far more antiquity than that. But still we can say 2500 BC, Hinduism is spreading from the Indus Valley and then moving throughout India and into the further eastern states. Then what happens about 500 BC is that Buddha appears. Of course, we know this is Krishna. And Buddhism spreads. There you see it through the Emperor Ashoka. Judaism had appeared much before, 2000 BC. But then gradually what happens is Christ comes. Christ is crucified. Christianity starts to spread. And then what happens 700 AD? Prophet Muhammad appears, 600 AD. Islam spreads like wildfire. During this time, you can see Christianity gradually spreading to the east. And then what you're going to see at about 1400, 1500 AD is what we call the Age of Discovery. And what happens when explorers go, the European explorers go to the Americas, Christianity spreads in North, South America. And like this, over time, all these different religions are spreading. Now what's happening here in this map is that it's just showing which religion is prominent in which place. Of course, all these religions are coexisting in different geographical areas. So now look at the whole world map. And apart from one small part of the world, you'll see that practically every single country in the world has been touched by religion. Why? Because man is homo religiosus. The sacred is an element of the consciousness, and until and unless you find God, until and unless you connect with God, nothing will make sense. You can have all the philosophy in the world, but if one has not met God, it will not make sense. Therefore, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Every single religion is having what we call an origin story. Where did it all come from? And every origin story will tell you it came from God. The unmoved mover, the cause of all causes, the root of all existence, Isvara, Parama, Krishna, the Brahma Samhita says. And so, we all, Krishna is saying to Arjuna and to each one of us, we all have the opportunity to meet God. Not meet God in theory, not meet God just because it's part of your tradition, but to meet God face to face, to have a real relationship, to have real reciprocation. And therefore, what Krishna is teaching Arjuna is that this is a spiritual science. There's a hypothesis. that you are the soul, that there is a God, and that there are practices of yoga, and that you can develop divine love. And then there is an experiment. There is a process of devotional service. This process is systematic, it's tangible, and it's measurable. In other words, Krishna is saying, if you do this diligently, with commitment, you will see me face to face. And then Krishna is saying there's a conclusion, there's an observation, there is an internal experience. When you experience God, you won't need anyone to tell you, because you will feel it within your own consciousness. But externally, everyone will look at you and they'll realize this person is different. This person has been touched. This person has awakened something I have not awakened. Why? Because you'll be happy. Happy in a completely different way. Why? Because you'll have a character that shines. Why will people be able to recognize? Because you will have desires which are very different to what everyone else is chasing out there. And so, Krishna tells Arjuna, you can see me. Everyone can see me because God is available. But who is spending the time? Who is giving themselves to the spiritual science? Who has taken up the process with seriousness and sincerity? Krishna says they will meet Isvara. Here we are sitting in Bhaktivedanta Manor, donated by George Harrison. And what did George Harrison say? Everybody is looking for Krishna. Some don't realize they are, but they are. Krishna is God, the source of all that exists, the cause of all that is, was, or ever will be. As God is unlimited, He has many names. Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, Rama. All are Krishna. All are one. All you need is love. Krishna. Haribol. I think we should give a massive round of applause to George Harrison for his incredible service. So dear friends, we have been reciting the Bhagavad-gita spoken from the mouth of Krishna. In the pages of the Bhagavad-gita and in the Mahabharata, not only does Krishna speak beautiful things, but you will see a conch next to Krishna's mouth. And Krishna of the Bhagavad-gita is the Krishna with a conch, because the conch represents victory. The conch represents conquest. And so what Krishna is teaching in the Bhagavad-gita is how to conquer your mind, how to conquer your ignorance, how to conquer over all your material desires. However, there's another Krishna. There is the Krishna who holds a conch, but then there is the Krishna who holds a flute. The goal is not just to conquer your mind. The goal is not just to conquer your desires. The goal is to be conquered by Krishna. The goal is to ultimately surrender to Krishna. The goal is to give your heart and mind to Krishna, and Krishna will give His heart and mind to you. And therefore, after the Bhagavad-gita, you have to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will hear Krishna who plays the flute. And when you hear, if you can hear Krishna's flute, then everything else is automatically resolved. Dear friends, I invite you to sit up straight. I invite you to close your eyes. I invite you now to step away from the battlefield of Kurukshetra, to step away from all the philosophy, and now to connect with Krishna who plays a flute. Krishna's flute is an extension of his beauty. It is the most beautiful sound imaginable. Krishna can sing very beautifully, but it is the sound of his flute, not his voice, that echoes throughout the universe. The flute is the simplest of all musical instruments, a mere hollow stick, but it gives forth a clear, pure, simple sound that can ignite deep separation and intense excitement. The sound of Krishna's flute is more than a melody. It's a call to come to him. The call of Krishna's flute cares nothing for this world and its moral and social laws. Krishna's flute hijacks the heart and cannot be denied. By means of his flute, Krishna fills himself and the universe with bliss. The sound of his flute puts an abrupt end to man's mechanical, habitual activity, as well as to the predictable movements of nature. Krishna's flute incites the world to dance. The flute invites man to return to that carefree, magical world of his youth. Krishna is the master magician, ruling over the eternal playground, and his wand is the flute. Dear friends, may we hear Krishna's flute. Don't take Krishna just to be a mythological personality, a philosophical concept, a part of your culture or tradition. Understand that Krishna is in your heart. And if you turn to him, he'll turn to you. So today we've spoken so much philosophy, serious philosophy. Maybe some of the things I said were strong. Maybe some of the things you saw were shocking. Maybe some of it got you to think. And maybe some of it felt like, I'm not ready for this. Whatever it may be, I invite you every single day to open your heart to Krishna's flute, because Krishna's flute is very charming. And I'll leave you with one final fact. Today we've discussed a lot of philosophy, and it's said that the father of Western philosophy was Socrates, the Greek philosopher. Socrates had a disciple, Plato, and Plato had a disciple, Aristotle. These three are considered the philosophers extraordinaire. Plato wrote a book called The Republic. And in this book, he explains the perfect society. In his book, he describes many things about the perfect society. But you know one interesting thing? He bans certain things in the Republic. And he bans certain instruments in the Republic. And you want to know what instrument Plato bans in the Republic? The flute. Because he said there's something about the flute that when people hear it, they may just lose all of their intelligence. Krishna's flute, even Plato understood, is powerful. But you want to know one other interesting thing? When Plato was leaving the world, he called, legend has it, he called one of his assistants and said, bring someone with a flute. I want to hear the flute. So Krishna says, Isvara, I'm controlling everything. But more than that, I'm your best friend. And connect. Talk to me. Serve me. And I will connect with you. I will talk to you. And I will serve you. Simple as that. All philosophy stops there. So, this is the puzzle that Krishna has now put together. You can see everything here. It began with jigyasa, curiosity to understand meaning. And through the systematic presentation of the Gita, Krishna has explained everything. And finally, he ends by inviting all of us to enter into a tangible, real, face-to-face relationship with him. Hare Krishna.